Flowers won't tell you where to put your bees, but they will tell you if you should keep bees at all. Hi, I'm Jerry, and I'm a beekeeper. I'm here in a place called Ndoma, which is in Lari, which is in Kiambu, which is in Kenya, home to tea, ndomas, and my 19 colonies. I'm not an expert, but 9 years has taught me a few things, and I'm going to share those lessons with you. So if you're going to wine and dine a bee, you need to give her the full package. Nectar, which is the main source of carbohydrates for bees and determines the flavor, smell, and color of your honey. Pollen, which is the primary source of protein, and lipids, which is the healthy fats for bees, as they are vegetarian. It's mainly used to feed brood, which is also known as the babies. She then washes that down with water. Sometimes water can be a source of minerals if the diet is lacking. They also use water for temperature control in the hive. But there's a little bit more to it than that. Let's go across the ocean to a place called home of almonds. 80% of the world's almonds come from California. Almonds rely 100% on bees for pollination. California has 1.5 million acres of land dedicated to almond trees. But every year, they import millions of honeybee colonies for pollination. Yes, millions of colonies. If we assume each colony has an average of 20,000 bees, that's a really big number of bees. So why wouldn't the almond farmers just keep their own bees? Well, almonds bloom once a year for 3 weeks, which means there isn't much for them to eat for 49 weeks of the year. Those bees would either starve or they would have to rely on sugar syrup for the rest of the year. Now back home, I don't know if we have any monocropping project as large as almonds, but where my bees live, we have flowing hills of tea. We don't let tea flower, so it doesn't offer my bees much. But we have a forest not too far away, and most homesteads have a variety of food crops and indigenous trees, so that keeps them well fed. When I first started, I was worried about what to plant for my bees, and so of course I thought about sunflower, which makes for very interesting flavor in honey. But over time, I have found my best friends when it comes to food sources are weeds and indigenous trees. Weeds are low cost and grow to the flowering stage really quickly, making nectar available very fast. My weed of choice where my bees are is this guy, the turnip rib, cousin of the canola. The downside is turnip rib honey crystallizes really quickly, sometimes in the comb before extraction. Indigenous trees, on the other hand, are low maintenance and are perfectly adapted for our climate and soils. They start flowering after about 3 years. So when you want to know what to plant for your bees where you are, do a little homework. Find out for your altitude, your soil, and your general climate what indigenous trees are best suited for you, and then get a whole bunch of those and gift some to your neighbors. What happens when nature fails? Will you have to feed your bees? Well, maybe. It's better to feed them and keep them than starve them and lose them. I've heard people say they'd rather have the bees abscond rather than feed them, which means the entire colony leaves your hive with no plans to return. I don't agree, but I understand why people might say it. Feeding bees feels like cheating, but it isn't. Bees aren't miracle workers. They're not magicians. What they take in determines what they put out, so they can't turn sugar syrup into honey. If you feed them sugar, that's what they will store in the hive. And if you're careless, that's exactly what you'll harvest. But there are things you can do to ensure that the syrup doesn't make it to your harvest. One of the things you can do is take off the frames in the super or the whole super during the feeding period. This is a typical Langstroth with a super at the top, which is where the beekeeper's honey is, and a brood box at the bottom, which all belongs to the colony. A good beekeeper will never cross that barrier. So during a nectar dearth, which is a time when there are no flowers, usually a dry period in this case, you can take off the top box and don't replace it until there are flowers and you have stopped feeding your bees. The bees prefer flowers anytime. So once your bees have access to flowers, they lose interest in your sugar. Don't worry about overcrowding. When flowers are scarce, the queen tends to lay fewer eggs, so the colony will shrink anyway. If you have a top bar hive like this one, then you can get a piece of plywood that creates a false wall known as a follower board, and it shrinks the hive or the nest during the feeding season. Once the flowers are back, you stop feeding, you remove the follower board, and you have your regular sized top bar hive. The other way you can make sure that you don't harvest sugar syrup is to sacrifice one honey harvest, or at least part of it, which is what I do. For example, in 2025, the short rains failed, which are the rains between September and November. So when I harvested in November, I knew I could possibly go back in January and take some more, but I didn't. That ensures that the bees have something to keep them going until the rains, which in this case started towards the end of February. And because of that, my absconding rates are very low. P.S. That sludge looking thing I'm feeding them right there is actually honey. But we'll talk about why it looks like that in another video. So let's talk about water. I came across this study seeking to answer the question, do bees really like dirty water? That should tell you how simple providing water for your bees should be. According to the study, the bees preferred clean water. However, they were happy to drink from the other sources, which included pond water, puddle water, and diluted farm slurry, which is manure and urine. Basically, as long as it's not contaminated with harmful chemicals and is reasonably dilute, the bees will drink it. I took this picture of a puddle in a very residential area. I know you can't see them, but there are a bunch of honeybees darting over it and then stopping right at the edge to drink from that puddle. Next time you're worried about how to get your bees some clean water, remember the puddle. Just keep it simple. I'm lucky because in the highlands there's plenty of water, there's streams. I had a neighbor who was doing catfish farming, so I've never had to really worry about water. Although it didn't stop me from trying to give them chicken drinkers, which they barely ever used. Alright, next time we'll look at money and realistic expectations you can have in beekeeping. Sawa, tutaongea.